Mr. Deputy Speaker, sir, it is impossible in 15 minutes to go over all the problems which the global business sector is currently facing. So I'll limit myself to a few of the problems. Mr. Deputy Speaker, sir, as from yesterday, India can tax 100% of capital gains realized by a Mauritius entity, a Mauritius fund, whenever it deposes its shares in India. For years, successive governments and Minister of Finance has resisted the pressure from the Indian government to renegotiate the treaty. 2015, there was a first protocol that was signed by the then Minister of Financial Services, who is no longer with us. The protocol was so awfully one-sided that the then Prime Minister, Honorable Sarandru Jagannath, had to go to India and ask Honorable Narendra Modi, Prime Minister of India, to reconsider the protocol. And a new protocol was signed in April of 2016. So the full effect of that amendment will now be felt because as from yesterday, India can tax fully capital gains. But investors has not waited till yesterday to shift their investment. According to the latest statistics published in India, reported in the Economics Times of India and in the Financial Express of India, for the period April 2018 to December 2018, last year, foreign direct investment into India from Singapore was $13 billion. Foreign direct investment from Mauritius was only $6 billion. Compared to the preceding year, foreign direct investment in equity from Mauritius into India had dropped by a staggering 55%. So my question to the Honourable Minister of Financial Services is, why do investors prefer to use Singapore than Mauritius? Has there been any study carried out at the level of the Financial Services Commission, at the level of the Economic Development Board, at the level of his ministry, to ascertain why investors prefer to use Singapore than Mauritius? Do we suffer from an image problem? Because are we still considered a tax haven? Now, if I refer to the summary of the blueprint, Innovating and Transforming Mauritius IFC of 2030, which was published last year in June 2018, this is what the report said as one of the challenges. Reputation and others. Mauritius has severe reputation challenges based on adverse perception and lack of awareness about the IFC's attractivity. So I would like the Honourable Minister, what has been done since June of last year to improve our reputation, our adverse perception? Is the Honourable Minister aware that today in India, the advisors are advising its clients to use Singapore rather than Mauritius? Is he aware that even our own advisors who are retained by Mauritius to advise it, namely Nishit Desai, has an office in Singapore but not an office in Mauritius? So is the Honourable Minister aware that since for the past 2 years, there hasn't been any serious initiative to uphold our image, upgrade our image? There used to be the Financial Services Promotion Agency, which their own government reintroduced in 2015. But then last year, in 2017, the Financial Services Promotion Agency was put under the Economic Development Board. And I remember last year I asked a question to the Honourable Minister of Financial Services, and he was not even aware who is chairing, who is heading the department dealing with financial services at the Economic Development Board level. And this morning we heard the Honourable Prime Minister answering to a PQ on the Economic Development Board. He mentioned 3 directorates, and he didn't mention anything about financial services. And yet, the Financial Services Promotion Agency was abolished and put under Economic Development Board Agency. So today we are left orphaned. The sector is orphaned. There is no one looking after promotion of financial services. Your own government, Honourable Minister of Financial Services, launched in 2016 at great cost to the Mauritian taxpayers, the Mauritius International Financial Centre. We had the Lord Mayor from London come in and launching it. I went and checked the website. There's nothing on the website. The last event carried out by the Mauritius International Financial Centre, according to the website, date as far back as 2016. So I really would urge the Honourable Minister of Financial Services to look into this matter about promoting the sector and upholding its image. Now, last year, the government introduced a series of fiscal reform applicable to global business sector. The tax credit, the deemed foreign tax credit regime was replaced by a partial exemption regime for global business services, which is okay, which is fine. However, when the Income Tax Act was amended, there was a list of foreign income that was listed as being partially exempt. For example, foreign dividend, profit attributable to a permanent establishment, interest derived overseas. But royalties is not included in that list, despite what the Honourable Prime Minister said in his budget speech, where he said that royalty would be partially exempt. When the law was amended, there was nothing about royalty. There was also nothing about brokerage fees, nothing about insurance premium, reinsurance premium. These are profit derived by insurance. And yet we are trying to attract insurance companies and reinsurance companies to set up in Mauritius. So these companies also should benefit from the partial exemption regime. Now, Mr. Deputy Speaker, sir, when the law was amended last year in the Finance Bill, I heard the Honourable Prime Minister and also the Honourable Minister of Financial Services talking on that bill, stated that we are introducing all these reforms to meet the requirement of the OECD and the BEPS, base erosion and profit shifting. In order not to be on anybody's blacklist, we had agreed to give up some of our fiscal rights, some of our taxing rights. So we accepted reluctantly because that was the price to pay to be on the whitelist. So everybody was shocked when it was reported 6 months later, on the 1st of February 2019, that the Code of Conduct groups of the European Union had written to the Prime Minister and stated, and I quote, "The Code of Conduct group has identified the introduction of the new fiscal regime to have similar harmful effect as the harmful regime that Mauritius had abolished at the end of 2018. That came as a shock to the whole offshore community. For example, if I can quote from a few newspapers on that day, l'Express of the 11th of February, panique généralisée après une lettre entre Maurice et l'Union européenne. Le Mauricien, les opérateurs choqués par la démarche de l'Union européenne. L'incertitude est notre ennemi numéro 1. Les autorités doivent résister. So everybody was shocked because we thought when the finance bill was introduced that this has been cleared with all authorities, not just the OECD, but also with the European Union. And now that we have gone, the offshore sector has gone to the client and tell them the new system and told them that we're no longer on anyone's blacklist, here we were receiving a letter from the European Union telling us that whatever we've introduced last year in the finance bill was equally harmful tax practice. So, Mr. Deputy Speaker, sir, my question today is, how are we going to correct this? The European Union, in its letter of February, had identified a number of reasons how we are harmful. And one of the things that they have asked us is to get anti-abuse measures and also to introduce CFC rule and switchover clause. And the European Union was very careful to say, and I quote, Mauritius did not agree to introduce CFC rule and a switchover clause. Rightly so. We are a sovereign country. We have the right to tax and impose a tax that we have to. I can understand if there was ring fencing, we were treating foreigners differently from locals, we should abolish this discrimination. But it is not for the European Union to come and dictate how, as a sovereign nation, we should tax our own citizens and whether we should introduce control foreign entity rules or not. So we were all very surprised then, Mr. Deputy Speaker, sir, when we read that the Honourable Prime Minister had replied on the 4th of February to the European Union, stating, and I quote, I hereby confirm that Mauritius is committed to address the identified deficiencies in the regime. We will ensure that the deficiencies are corrected by 31st December 2019 at least, without any grandfathering mechanism. Now this puts us in a really embarrassing situation because we have already been telling all our clients that we have a proper set of legislation, a proper taxing regime, and now our own Prime Minister is taking a commitment to change the law again, and we don't know what will be the changes. So there is total uncertainty in the global business sector. And uncertainty is the worst enemy of investors. Now, there was a meeting that was held by the Financial Services Ministry, Financial Services Commissions, and stakeholders. And we were told that the government will come and change substance requirement. Now, again, this is another big problem to the sector. In circular letter issued on the 12th and 15th of October 2018, just last year, the Financial Services Commission published new enhanced substance requirement. The FSC clarified, basically, what a company needs to do in order to benefit from the preferential tax regime. So they identified that certain companies, depending on the type of license they have, should spend a certain amount of money in Mauritius. And they also identified that depending on the turnover of the company, they need to employ 1, 2, or 3 employees in Mauritius. So that was the enhanced substance requirement. And we were very happy about it. So we went again to our clients, the social sector went to their client and said, you know, this is what the Financial Services Commission has told us. If you employ 1, 2, 3 employees in Mauritius, if you spend $50,000, $100,000 in Mauritius, you're home and clear. No one will attack you, you will benefit from the preferential tax treatment, and you will benefit from the double taxation treaty. But now we are told that the FSC is going to change those substance requirements 5 months later. The FSC have already removed the circular from its website. So what are we going to say to our clients? It's really ridiculous. 5 months ago, the FSC comes with a set of substance requirement. 5 months later, we have to go to our client and tell them, you know, forget about whatever the FSC said. They didn't know what they were doing. So again, I would stress on the Honourable Minister to take a serious look at this because, I will repeat it, uncertainty is the worst enemy of the sector, and today there is a total lack of leadership and lack of visibility where this sector is going. Thank you.
Deputy Speaker, having listened carefully to the statement of the Honourable Member, the only certainty which is there is that we are aware of all the issues which have been raised, and not only are we aware, but we have studied the statistics, we have studied the different requirements and the other compliance issues that the member has raised. It is my intention that I'm going to come up with a statement in due course to clarify the issues raised by the Honourable Member. For the time being, there's nothing to panic. We have everything under our control. Thank you very much.